Moon Patrol! Developed by IREM back in 1982, this game was designed by Takeshi Nishiyama. It was licensed to William Electronics to be distributed in the United States. Now, what's interesting about this game is it was one of the earliest ones to feature parallax scrolling in the background. That is, the foreground would scroll at a different rate as the two background elements to give you an illusion of depth. It's pretty neat for its time. Another neat feature of this game is the animated wheels on the buggy as it rolls across the surface of the moon. Especially when you get destroyed, they go bouncing off the screen, which is kind of cool to see. The controls of the game are pretty straightforward. You have a joystick that you push to the right to speed your buggy up, push it to the left to slow your buggy down. You have a jump button and you have a fire button. Now, a neat trick to do is as you're playing the game, you'll notice the UFOs buzzing around the top of the screen can sometimes fly between your shots. They'll time themselves. Now, if you're driving your buggy and you jump and shoot at the same time multiple times, you can actually compress your shots closer together where the UFOs can't avoid them as easily. So that's a neat little trick to do while you're playing the game to get a little bit higher scores and get rid of the enemies off the screen quicker. Now let's take a look at the actual arcade game screen real quick. You'll notice when looking at the screen here, we have at the top, we have your one player score on the left. We have a high score at the very top with a little crown next to it. Then we have a little information box. Right now it says point G, which means you've passed checkpoint G recently. Now in this game there are 26 checkpoints, A through Z. And when you get to 5 major checkpoints, which are E, J, O, T, and Z, they denote a stage change in the game. So when you get to those checkpoints, the background will change and the theme will change. Then you'll notice you also have a timer. You have only a certain amount of time to get to each checkpoint. The quicker you get to the checkpoints, the more bonus points you get at the end of the round. Then you'll see 3 dots, 3 little indicators stacked on top of each other on the right-hand side of the screen at the top. Now what those stand for, when the upper one starts to flash, that means you have aerial enemies coming in to bomb you or shoot you. If the middle one starts flashing, that means there's a minefield coming up that you have to avoid. And if the bottom light comes on, that means you have an enemy vehicle coming up from behind that you have to avoid. Now you do have some enemies you have to contend with in this game. You have your typical UFOs that buzz around the top of the screen and shoot down at you. Sometimes they'll actually try to kamikaze your moon buggy, and it's best to try to avoid them as much as possible. There's also another type of UFO that buzzes around to the top that actually drop bombs. When these bombs hit the ground, they'll create more craters for you to have to dodge. Now, as you're traveling across the surface of the moon, you're going to notice you have moon rocks have to either jump or destroy, and you have various sized craters that you have to jump over. It's very easy for your moon buggy to fall into a crater and get destroyed. Now let's take a look at some arcade gameplay and talk about it as I'm playing the game. As you can see, we begin with the beginner course. Jumping craters, hitting the rock and dying. That's pretty bad, man. Okay, jump the crater. You notice the lights flashing on the top right now, which means my aerial enemies are coming to attack. Now here are those UFOs that drop bombs that make craters you have to avoid. And I died again. When you get to the end of the level, you get a special music playing, and this is where you get your bonus points if you made it in a certain amount of time, which I didn't do. So I got no bonus. Notice the background changed now. I got a cityscape. Now the center caution light's blinking, which means I'm coming up on a minefield. Basically, it's got to time your jumps just right. Now as I progress to the levels, now I'm going up a hill and avoiding rolling boulders. Now I have tanks to contend with. And then as you approach the end of the whole series, get to checkpoint Z, you get a special theme music playing here. What kind of bonus I get? 5,000. Now you start the champion course, which it'll just keep looping over and over again on this level. This is a much harder version of Moon Patrol. I see the lower caution lights blinking, which means I got something coming up from behind, and right there it is. So I gotta wait till he comes at me, then I have to time my jump. Boing, boom. Awesome. Now let's take a look at some of the home ports of Moon Patrol. First up, we have the Atari 2600 version. Not too bad. Next is the Atari 5200 version, which is very similar to the Atari 8-bit computer line as well. And I died. This one does have the parallax scrolling backgrounds though, and you can hear the theme music playing in the background. This version though, you have a two-wheeled buggy instead of a three-wheeled buggy. Now here's the Commodore 64 version. And here it is for the Game Boy Color, which is actually a really good version of the game. And I died. Great. And I died again. There's also a homebrew version of Moon Patrol called Space Patrol, released for the Intellivision. Quite a bit of fun. Of course, it looks like my buggy's got legs and it's walking though. And then in 2014, CollectorVision released Moon Patrol for the ColecoVision. Not too bad of a version. Well, that was Moon Patrol, a great arcade game from the early 80s that's still one of my favorites. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.